Hi, I'm Jelynn Malone.
I'm Bev Magtanong.
Oh wait, you have to try that.
Oh, is this not on?
Hi, I'm Bev Magtanong.
Hi, I'm Mike Arquines.
Hi, I'm Sam Magtanong.
All right, well, welcome. Thank you guys so much for spending your afternoon with us. We are Mostra Coffee, and I wanted to first off say thank you to you guys for having us. Moses, thank you for coming into Mostra and bringing us out here. We're so honored to be a part of Google. You guys are Google. I mean, there's nothing cooler than Google, right? But yeah, so I just want to introduce my partners again. So Bev Magtanong, she and I started the company, brought on Mike, and then brought on Sam. So we've had such a crazy journey up to this point. We are actually celebrating our 5th year in business this year, and it's been an eventful year. We opened 2 retail locations this year, which is a lot for anybody. So we opened up 2 retail locations. We've done a number of beer collaborations. Mike, how many beer collaborations would you say we've done up to this point?
We're at about 420 in the last maybe 4 years, actually.
Okay,
so
yeah.
Pretty close.
And then, so our biggest collaboration was with Stone Brewing Company. Everyone knows Stone Brewing Company, right? So one of their most popular beers is the Chocovesa Mocha Stout, and we collaborated with them, and we do that every year with them, and it's nationally distributed, and it's probably our biggest account. But we've done that, and one of the biggest, most mind-blowing ones is that this year we were named one of the top 3 finalists for Micro Roaster of the Year 2019. And that was quite humbling for us. And now we're at Google. So, I mean, this is definitely on the list of like the cool things that we've had an opportunity to do. I wanted to go over just kind of the things we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about coffee. We're going to be talking about specialty coffee and what that is, coffee roasting, the innovation of coffee and how that is involved with craft beer and food and many other things, as well as community. It's kind of a weird situation how we all got here. My partners and I were doing things so far from coffee. I have a background in entertainment as a TV host and a film and TV actress. Nothing to do with coffee. Bev is a graduate of the Boston Conservatory and a professional opera singer and owns her own vocal studio. And so if you need voice lessons, call Bev. And then there's Mike, which he's still Chef Mike in my phone. He's a fine dining chef and owns his own company called The Lab Dining Sessions. And Sam is a veteran, actually. He's a captain in the Army, was a captain in the Army, fought in Iraq. Happy Veterans Day, Sam. And he has transitioned into becoming a healthcare executive. So how we all ended up doing coffee is probably the most interesting thing, and it's probably the most synchronistic part of it too. Bev and I have been best friends for over 20 years. We went to middle school and high school together. And in high school, we were dreaming up these businesses that we could own together. And then after high school, we left San Diego, pursued careers in entertainment and college and all that. And about 10 years after that, we came back to San Diego. And when we came back, we started working with a charity organization to help aid the poor in the Philippines. And we got the opportunity to travel out to the Philippines. We fell in love with the culture, which our families are all from the Philippines, but we got to go there and, as adults and experience the Philippines. And we recognized not only the beautiful people and the culture, but also the gravity of the poverty out there. And we learned that the only way that you could really help eradicate poverty is to provide job opportunities, and instead of just like giving them money. So anyway, so we came home and we were like, okay, that was extremely inspiring. How are we going to eradicate poverty? We don't know, but that was that. So a few years later, she and I started a pastry company. We don't bake at all. We don't bake at all. But we hired a pastry chef, and we started a pastry company. And Sam, being an executive in the healthcare industry, he had a facility that needed a cafe. So he gave us the opportunity to open up a cafe. So we went to go do that. But if you're going to have pastries, you need coffee. But we didn't drink coffee at all. We were like the Starbucks drinker girls that were like, let's get the most sugar with extra whipped cream, and we don't want to taste any coffee at all. but we needed coffee for our shop. So the only person we knew really that drank coffee was Mike. And we had met Mike when we were doing all of our charity events because he was like a chef for one of the events. So I was like stalking him on social media, and he always posted stuff about coffee. So I called him and I'm like, hey, could you show us around and maybe introduce us to some coffee roasters in town? He did that. Bev and I, not being coffee drinkers, were not that into this, but we got there and we tried specialty coffee for the first time, and it was a mind-blowing experience. The wide range of flavors and the kinds of products that come from specialty coffee were so interesting. So we left that trip and came home, and this light bulb basically went off, and we realized, we were like, wait a minute, let's not do the pastry company, let's be coffee roasters. We don't know anything about coffee, but we're going to do that instead. So we started Mostra Coffee, and we called Mike to see if he could help us learn more about coffee. And he so happened to have always had a dream to roast coffee. We're like, great, you could be our roaster. But none of us, again, knew what we were doing. So we were winging it. We were totally winging it. So we started roasting. We bought a roaster, and we started roasting out of Bev and Sam's garage in Forest Ranch. Sorry to all the neighbors in Forest Ranch that were smelling all the coffee. Because it actually doesn't smell like brewed coffee. Roasted coffee smells like popcorn, and anyway, it's not the same. So so we started roasting coffee, and the company actually started to grow. We started closing wholesale accounts. We were closing accounts with Tender Greens and companies like that, and breweries started calling us for coffee. And so then we ended up bringing on another partner, and then Sam, to bring more of a corporate structure and their expertise to actually growing this business. Because again, Hollywood, opera singer, chef, we're like, okay, here we are. So fast forward, here we are 5 years later with being named one of the top 3 micro roasters in the United States. Still don't know how that has happened, but we're so extremely humbled and grateful. And why we decided coffee and not coconut or
bamboo,
which were other things that are grown in the Philippines.
Right. So, I mean, we could have done different things. Bamboo, coconut, these are other things that are really abundant in the Philippines, but we chose coffee, and we chose specialty coffee. And why specialty coffee, right? So, terms like specialty coffee or craft coffee are terms that more and more people are starting to use these days. And I mean, it makes sense because specialty coffee is growing. It's grown by about 2% every single year for the last 16 years or so, to the point where, Starbucks has actually created their own line of reserve coffees and their own chain of reserve coffee shops. So if you haven't been inside a Starbucks reserve coffee shop, what you'll find in there are various bags, really nice bags of single origin coffees, fancy espresso machines, manual pour-over methods. And it's really Starbucks' way of creating a space for the specialty coffee consumer. So, this is happening, and people are like, okay, what's going on? Why specialty coffee? What is specialty coffee, right? How does specialty coffee differ from regular coffee? And most importantly to some people, why is my cup of specialty coffee more expensive than the cup of coffee that I can get at the gas station, right? So every single day here in the States, 400 million cups of coffee are consumed. About 59% of those coffee cups are brewed with specialty coffee. So that's 236 million cups of coffee that are brewed with specialty coffee. How many people are actually looking inside their cup and thinking, I know how that coffee got inside my cup, or even questioning how it got into their cup, right? Jelynn mentioned that I am a classical singer. I was trained as a classical singer since I was 12. And people always ask me, how do you go from classical singing to coffee. It's random and it's completely different, which it totally is. They're two totally different industries. Yet at the same time, they're so similar in that the complexities and the nuances and the work and the detail that goes into becoming a classical musician, like learning vocal technique and the time that it takes to learn vocal technique, or learning foreign languages and observing foreign languages in conjunction with a composer's work. Those kind of complexities and details I was able to find so similarly in specialty coffee. And I'm gonna tell you why, how they're so similar and how those kinds of details are present in this industry. Mike is gonna do that too as he gets into his roasting portion, but the coffee bean starts at the farm. It starts in a farm outside of the States. In countries like Costa Rica or Guatemala or Brazil or Indonesia or Papua New Guinea. And the Arabica coffee bean, which is the type of coffee that can be considered a specialty coffee, is grown in the highland mountains of these countries. So it's grown at about 3,000 to 6,500 feet in elevation. And these farms are tilled and they're maintained by sometimes single families. They don't have access to advanced farming equipment or technology, and their way of farming is really by sight or feel or partnering with outside coffee partners that come into the mountains, and they help them, make sure that they're adhering to best farming practices and processes. Now, these Arabica coffee trees take a long time to grow. They take about 3 to 5 years to get to maturity to be able to harvest coffee from them, as opposed to some of these other coffees like Robusta or Liberica. So those types of coffees are actually grown in the lowlands of the mountains. They grow aggressively. You can grow a lot of it, and you can grow it often. So these are coffees that you will find in your instant coffee. They don't have as delicate of flavors as Arabica coffee. They're bitter and they're harsh, and they're considered commercial coffee. So like I said, Arabica coffee takes a long time to grow. They are really susceptible to disease just because they're in the highlands, so there's a lot of rains, there's a lot of moisture, so mold ends up becoming an issue. So these trees really take careful cultivating. The trees produce a cherry. So a lot of people don't know that coffee actually starts inside a cherry. Those trees bear fruit. And one Arabica coffee tree makes enough cherries for 1 to 2 pounds of roasted coffee. So let's put that in perspective. It takes 2,000 cherries to produce 1 pound of roasted coffee. That means that the average 2-cup-a-day coffee drinker annually is gonna have consumed 18 trees. It's a lot of cherries. And remember, these cherries aren't picked by some machine. They're hand-picked by these farmers. They're going out into the field and they're hand-picking these cherries. Now, once they actually pick the cherries, it has to go through a whole process. Mike is gonna go into more detail about these processes, but they have to actually sort out ripe cherries from unripe cherries. So sometimes this is done by hand. Sometimes they actually put them in water, and the cherries that are floating are unripe, and the ones that are sinking are ripe. So that's how they can tell the difference. From there, I can go through a depulping method. So they'll take the bean actually outside of the cherry, then it gets fermented, then it gets dried, and it has to dry so that the moisture content inside the bean actually gets to a certain percentage, and then it gets milled, and then it gets bagged, and then it comes down the mountain by a horse or a donkey, because there's no helicopter that's going up there and getting these coffees, and then it's exported. But before it gets exported, we've got, third-party green coffee buyers that actually come on site. These people are typically Q graders. So Q graders are the official people that can actually grade this coffee. They've gone through a lot of training, they've tasted a lot of coffee, and they actually are certified people that come and taste and grade these coffees. So they'll take a green sample of the raw coffee, and they'll look at it, and they're able to identify, what kind of defects the coffee may have. Now, defects could be discoloration of the coffee, it could be insect damage, it could be broken or chipped coffee beans, and if there are enough defects in that sample, that coffee may not even move on to the next level, which is the roasting. So once the coffee gets moved on, if it does get moved on, they'll roast that sample of coffee, and then they'll actually cup it, or they'll taste it. And what they're looking for is sweetness in the coffee. They're looking for how clean the coffee tastes, meaning how many off flavors are present or not present inside the coffee. They're looking for any defects, and they'll grade it, essentially. And so if it gets graded as an 80 or higher, okay, the specialty coffee grade scale is out of 100. If it gets graded an 80 or higher, then it's considered specialty. If it's below that, it's not. So if it's specialty, they'll consider it in their inventory to push out to the roasters, right? Another situation that happens is that roasters actually go to the farm themselves. Now, this is a great situation because it's called direct trade. So the farmers will go and sell directly to the roasters, and the roasters will do the same thing. They'll cup the coffee, they'll decide if they want to bring it in. And then what's great is that the farmer actually gets typically more money per pound of coffee because you get rid of the middleman in that situation and you're working directly with the farmer. So once we get that coffee, what we have to do is we actually have to roast that coffee at different levels. And then we have to cup it and taste all of those different levels of coffee, roasted coffee. And then we have to decide which coffee we want to push out into the market. Once that happens, it gets brought to the baristas. And then the baristas have to actually figure out what coffee to water ratio is going to make the best cup of coffee and be the best representation of that origin or that blend. And then it gets brewed and it gets sold to the consumer. So as you can see, the journey from seed at the farm to cup is a crazy one. And there's a lot of hands that are involved in that process and a lot of people that have to uphold a certain quality and standard throughout that whole process. So, the next time that you see a latte for $4 or $4.50 and you might be wondering why it costs that much, you'll know that that's why, because the process is so laborious. At Mostra, we take pride in being really innovative and creative with our coffees. I think it's one of the things that really sets us apart from other roasters. And Mike here is a great asset to us because he's actually a fine dining chef, like Lynn mentioned. He actually graduated from the Art Institute here in San Diego, and he has worked in really prestigious restaurants like Charlie Trotter's in Chicago and Le Bernardin in New York. And he is really able to approach the coffee with a culinary mindset. And it's really been so fun to be able to see him work with the coffee and be able to do amazing things with it. So Mike is gonna take it away.
Thank you. How's everybody doing today? Fantastic. A little brief, quick blurb about myself. I was supposed to be a nurse. I'm Filipino. I'm either in the military or I'm a nurse. My mother, so pretty much I broke my mom's heart. At the end of the day, she's a nurse, amazing nurse. She worked long hours in Oakland, emergency room, night shift, yay high. They called her Little Napoleon. She ruled with an iron fist, and she is my inspiration. So, but I did break her heart. I decided to pursue a career in the culinary field, and to her, it was not the ideal situation because for her, coming from the Philippines, it was all about stability. And money and being able to provide for your family. And she felt that at the time, that route just wasn't ideal. So broke her heart, nurse, educated myself, culinary arts management at San Diego Art Institute, traveled to New York, did a stint at Le Bernardin, came back, worked in and around San Diego, went to Charlie Trotter's Chicago for a while, and which I spent most of my time, very intense kitchen, if you could imagine, kind of like Gordon Ramsay, like ×5. It was insane. So anyways, came back here, and here we are, right? Lab Dining Sessions stands for collaboration. I opened that in 2009, and we provide unique dinner experiences, multi-course experiences that I felt that was happening and was hot in New York and in Chicago, and to bring that here was definitely something new for San Diego. So, so we started in a garage. We're garagepreneurs, pretty much, I would like to say. Almost burnt the house down, as everyone asked. I mean, we sprung for this roaster, right? And so I'm a flavor nerd. I love flavor. I love the process of manipulation of flavors and tastes and just techniques. So as we pretty much just Googled a lot of things. Yeah, we Googled techniques and forums, and that's pretty much how I learned. I asked a lot of questions, take a lot of good notes, and then at the end of the day, what does it taste like? You could go through so many different variations and variables throughout in the roasting process, but at the end of the day, does it taste good? So that's what we relied on a lot in the beginning was, and up to this point is, does it taste good? So why innovation, right? Because why not? Coffee is a part of daily life for all of us, well, most of us, I would say, and it was for me working in the kitchen, or whether you're a nurse, or you're a doctor, or you're in the military, or you're working in an office, or you're working at Google, doesn't matter. Coffee definitely gets you through the day. But we wanted to provide it in such a way that made it exciting, not just providing you with a good cup of coffee, but also the experience to that cup of coffee, right? And that's why we at Mostra focus on the not only the sourcing and the responsibility in the community, but also the experience, customer experience, and for a premium product, right? And that's new and exciting. So I always like to think about when I'm roasting coffee and the approach to coffee or the approach to cold brews and other products, it runs parallels to the culinary world because it's flavor first, right? So, for example, when we're creating a blend of coffee, it's just like in my mind, I'm like, okay, so you're taking 3 or 4 different kinds of coffees and you're layering flavors that each one provides, just like stock. You guys make stock at home, chicken stock. They call it bone broth nowadays, but that's like the buzzword. But chicken stock, beef stock, vegetable stock, fish stock, it's all the same concept. You start with a great base, and then you go into deglazing, and you add another layer of flavor, that's your acidity, and then you add your broth, which can be your if you're deglazing with red wine, you have your tannic qualities, and then you have the broth, which is the richness in the body. That sounds like a blend to me, an espresso blend. So again, that's how I draw inspiration and parallels to what I do or what we do here at Mostra. So my number one thing is to always think as a kid when I'm trying to think of a product, because kids are always curious. They're always wondering why, asking themselves why, asking a lot of questions. And I still do the same thing till this day. And because that just keeps me on my toes. And again, like, keep it fresh, keep it awesome. So community, collaboration is one big thing we do. Some of the biggest things we do here at Mostra is people know us as a cold brew company. They found us through cold brew. At one point it was like, whoa, like, it's just cold brew, right? We felt like, why aren't more people doing this? It's 70% less acidic. It's easier on the stomach for people. This was back like 5 years ago, and people were literally buying bottles of cold brew at their house where we would brew it. And it was like, okay, we were probably onto something. Other roasteries at the time were kind of not on board. They're like, no, that's not what we're about, which is okay. But why not, right? Why not? So, so in conjunction with that, being in San Diego, we have a big craft beer presence, big craft beer community, right? We have some of the best craft beers in the world. I'm a craft beer nerd as well, and I derive a lot of my inspiration from those breweries as well. They create a base stout for a lot of beers, and then from there they throw in whether it's hazelnuts and marshmallows or coffee or so on and so forth. But I was like, why don't we try that with our cold brew? So we started dabbling with different ingredients that we felt would complement and contrast our coffees. So our first one was our One Brazilian Coconuts, which we use fresh coconut and fresh vanilla bean. And up until this day, it's one of our best sellers. Literally tastes like an Almond Joy or a Mounds bar. It's fantastic. But sourcing great product, using it with respect and finesse, and not messing up, and sourcing great coffee and not messing it up. That's the key to our products, right? And then, so with that, those are how our collaborations really started. We started with 1, and then it turned to 3, and then it turned to 8, and then now we're at 400 plus right now. Why? Because we wanted to not only build community through our products and also work with like-minded, crafty people and talented people, but we wanted to provide, we felt the need to provide a service now to these breweries. And how do we do that, right? Breweries typically would go to a store or go to a fellow roaster and be like, hey, I'm making a stout. Okay, cool, here you go. I hope this tastes good. Normally that's what happens. But in my head, I'm like, okay, so if they spend so much time in hop selection in New Zealand and they travel and they do all this to make a beer, well, if they're making a coffee stout, they probably want to select the coffee and work with the right roaster properly just as much as they would attention to detail in hop selection, for example. So there, we felt there was that need. So we like to say we like to custom tailor the beers like a suit, the coffee like a suit to this beer. So now, if they're brewing a stout, we'll have a meeting. I'll say, hey, what's your process? What's your mineral? What's your water quality like? What's your infusion? Where are you infusing? What side of the brew side are you infusing? Are you going to barrel age it? What's the finishing ABV? Stuff like that, because all that plays into flavor. So when I have all that information, maybe after 2 meetings, then we'll talk coffee after that. So, so with all the success with the breweries and the collaborations, and with all the products that all these breweries are pumping out with our name on it, I was like, man, this is definitely something that, what else can we do with it? Because why not, right? A lot of our beers are barrel-aged beers, big, hefty, 12+% beers. And what do they do with the beers after they're dumped and bottled? They just have these barrels that they turn into furniture or, plants and, what do you call those? Pottery, whatever, anyways. So I was like, why don't we take those barrels and age green coffee in it? Because green coffee is porous, meaning like an egg. Like an egg is porous. You put it in the fridge, you put it next to something very pungent, it'll absorb those flavors. Now you make scrambled eggs in the morning, now you have that flavored scrambled eggs in the morning. So we took green beans, aged them in a barrel, for example. It absorbs the flavors that were in the barrel, big stout, plus it used to be a bourbon barrel, so 12 years of bourbon whiskey from Kentucky, all that push and pull in the wood, in the flavors. It's like a time machine of flavor. And that gets absorbed into the green coffee. We roast it. We check moisture content on it constantly, agitating, rotating the barrel, and then we'll sample roast. Like Bev said, we sample roast coffee to taste for defects or flavor qualities we like or we do not like, and we adjust, take notes, right? And then we have our finished product. Now you're tying community. Why? Because you're taking 2 brands that normally don't work together in this way, and providing this product that's exciting, where when I say exciting, people are lining up for it. And these lines are insane. Beer releases are insane. Sometimes people camp out for 2 days for a beer. We've had people camp out for coffee at like 1 a.m. It's pretty awesome. And that's the power of community and of obviously marketing. But if the product is great, people will come. So that's also a big part of innovation in my mind and in our mind. So on top of the 400 plus beers that we've done, on top of the cold brews we've done, the barrel aging, all that, we like to think that we are great at bridging gaps between different crafts, and bridging bridging these crafts together is huge for us, because now you're taking people who normally either don't drink coffee at that level or they do drink coffee, and now whether you're in a kitchen or you're a distiller or you're a brewer, we're actually tying all these crafts together with our products and with yes. So
That was my cue. Bridging gaps
yes
was my cue. So my name is Sam, and I get a chance to tie it all together and to close this to close this segment. We didn't get a chance to really highlight Jelynn's background. So Jelynn is a working TV film actor in Hollywood for TV shows like General Hospital, Las Vegas on NBC, and a number of films. She's hosted her own shows on VH1, TV Guide Channel, Nike, ABC's backstage host for the Emmys, to name a few. They brought the non-performer on a team of performers to Google Talks. I'm also deathly afraid of public speaking, and I don't memorize lines very well, so I'm the only one with a notebook, and I wrote every single word that I was going to say in case I forget it. Lynn was an actress in Hollywood for a number of years. Beverly was a classically trained opera singer. Mike is a fine dining chef. I'm an immigrant. I was born in the Philippines. I came here when I was 4 years old. I'm also a veteran. I felt it was my calling, and it was an honor for me to serve my country. I'm also the grandson of a rice farmer. Farming culture and the love for the land, I think, is definitely in my blood. My grandfather planted rice for over 60 years in the same plot of land before he passed away a couple years ago. When I went to the Philippines in 2015, and I spoke to my grandfather in the southern part of the Philippines in Mindanao, and I asked him, Lola, where are the coffee farmers? He pointed to the mountains, and he said, go climb up the mountains and go start speaking to the coffee farmers. And I did. The Philippines is the perfect setting for growing coffee. It's got climate, it's got elevation, it's got the soil, it's got the manpower, it's got the farm and the farming culture. Across the world, in the coffee belt, as Beverly mentioned, Guatemala, the countries in South America, Papua New Guinea, you got the African countries like Ethiopia, you got Indonesia. Coffee and growing coffee has been the mechanism for wealth generation for these farmers. But unfortunately in the Philippines, due to the politics and to the current economic situation there, the Filipino farmers are impoverished. There's not enough coffee production in the Philippines to meet local consumption of coffee. They're importing from outside the country over 50% of the coffee consumption, much less exporting to other parts of the world, or bringing their specialty coffee to you all here. But the coffee bean still provides the best promise and the means for inclusion to these farmers and to the indigenous peoples that are growing these coffees in the mountain regions of southern Mindanao and northern Luzon in the Philippines that have historically been excluded from their communities. So as a Filipino and American, and as Filipino Americans here, the passion behind our project has been to elevate the plights of the Philippine farmer, to honor our past and our history, to provide economic opportunity, and to elevate the Philippine bean to the global world market. And when we applied for the Roaster of the Year competition sponsored by Roast Magazine this past year, our coffee submission was the humble Philippine bean. And as others submitted some of the world's top coffees, we were compelled to submit that as part of our legacy and as part of our story. We have a barista here who you'll meet outside who's helping us with the roasting demonstration. He'll be competing in the preliminaries of the U.S. Coffee Championships in Denver on December 1st and 2nd, and his bean of choice is going to be the Philippine bean. As we continue to tell the story of the bean in general and the Philippine bean in particular, we hope to be able to honor our past that allows us to explain how I got here, how we all got here, and allows us to wonder what the future could bring. So 5 years ago, we started Mostra Coffee in my garage. I turned to my wife, Beverly is my better half, and she said to me, we're going to start a roasting company, and we're going to pull all of our money, our savings, along with the savings of all of our partners, and we're going to start a roasting company. I turned to them, you don't know anything about coffee, and you don't know anything about business, and you're an opera singer. How are we going to make this work? But that's what we did. We started roasting in our garage 1 pound of coffee at a time. We took all of our money and savings, and we bought a 1 pound profile roaster, and we named her affectionately Francesca, or Franny for short. You'll meet her outside. What inspired us then to go for broke and to take a risk is what continues to fuel our vision today, that through a simple cup of coffee and the very powerful spirit of community and collaboration, that we can inspire one another to be the best versions of ourselves. So Mostra in Italian means to perform, performance, exhibition, show, and all the owners really wanted to do was just through their own inspired performance, be better people. And through our own performance, can we inspire others? Can we inspire you to perform to the best of your ability? That we can build and connect and inspire local and global communities to create opportunities, real opportunities that impact people's lives and families, where that we can create impactful and meaningful experiences and connection, that we, us four, can be the reason, and all of us out here listening can be the reason that people see the goodness in humanity. As we observe Veterans Day today, and as we commemorate the 100th anniversary of the armistice that went into effect on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in the year 1918, that ended the war to end all wars, Mostra's vision is even more clear to me. As we are being reminded that the old demons are rising again, ready to complete their task of chaos and death that was spoken by the French president over the weekend's commemorations during Armistice Day, that the old demons are rising again, ready to destroy and to wreak havoc and chaos. Our mission is very, very clear. It's through a simple cup of coffee, however you drink your coffee, with cream or sugar or simple black, or a nice cold brew, or a shot of espresso, or a fancy latte, that we can come together and that we can find common ground, and that there are more that unites us than what divides us. And the last sentence of our mission statement is real simple. We are one. That's all I have. Thank you for inviting us to speak. And I know we have a few more things for you in store.
I know we had to open up for questions, right? Okay. Anyone have any questions?
Anyone have any questions for us today? Yes.
So just one, I don't know very much about coffee at all, but one thing I do know is about like the roasting cycle. You can have different types of roasts,
Right.
different types of, do you typically take a single batch of green beans and say we're going to do a medium roast for this, or we're going to do a dark roast with this, or do you kind of say, okay, let's try the gambit here with this particular batch of green beans?
So Mike, you want to take this
Yeah.
on?
Am I on? Okay. Yeah. So we also try to source as seasonal as possible, and with that being said, we get notes on these coffees that we, for example, if it's a Costa Rica, right? We'll before we bring it in, we'll already know what we're looking for and how we should probably approach it based on whether it's elevation and how it's processed, right? And then so that we're kind of ahead of the game once it comes in, and as we're building this library of origins, we could bring in any type of African and kind of roast it similar, and then adjust at that time, because it's going to vary from crop to crop regardless, right? So we kind of have a premeditated approach to it before we get it, and then say if it's that Costa Rica, we feel that at a light medium roast spectrum, we're going to be able to bring out more of what we want from it: the chocolate, the cocoa, the molasses coming out of it. So that to me sounds like a medium dark roast. But then when you go on the other end of the spectrum, which is like we bring in our Ethiopians, which are, for example, a wash process versus a natural process. You're talking wash, which is more lemony and lively acidity, and then you have a natural process, which is fruity. So just by knowing those key words, we're like, okay, this is how we should probably approach it.
So for a given batch, you will typically choose one roast for it, is what you're saying?
Well, when we sample roast, there's a predetermined range of steps that we need to hit according to the Specialty Coffee Association. And then from there, we'll taste it, and we're like, okay, you'll learn like maybe 60% of what that coffee is, and then the other 40%, if we really like it, we'll bring in a bigger batch or a full bag of it, and then we'll profile roast it, meaning we'll roast it at different temperatures, drop temps, charge temps, and development times, and then we'll cup it, we'll rest it, we'll cup it, and at different through the process of elimination, we'll choose 1 or 2 cups, and then from there, we'll cup it blind and do it, and then that's how we choose our coffee. So it's a process.
So not any, we don't take an origin of coffee and say, okay, we're going to do this as a medium roast. We bring it in and we'll roast it at different levels, and we'll cup it. Nothing that we do at Mostra is really dark at all, or even really light for that matter. We kind of tend to stick in that medium range. We feel that most of the time we can highlight a lot of what that coffee has to bring. So, it's really just a process of, at the end of the day, what tastes good, right? Yes.
So, how do you scale? You're one taster. I'm assuming coffee it's grown naturally, so different batches will have different characteristics.
Correct.
How do you make sure that you get the same product at the end of it at any scale?
I think knowing your source is the most important thing, and having that relationship with the farm, knowing that their processes are locked in, and then you know what you're getting year in, year out Mother Nature dictates a lot of that too, right? Because one coffee that's grown on one side of the mountain that had more rain than the other one on the other side is definitely going to taste a lot different. It's our job as roasters to not only vet out those farmers and then create that relationship, and then trusting our farmers. And then from there, they send us the coffee, and we don't mess it up. So we just try not to mess it up. If you source good coffee, the key is what I've learned throughout the years is to just source good coffee, don't mess it up. That's it.
Did you get consistently, the bean is consistent enough from a particular farmer or a particular region?
Yeah, for the most part. You'll get these really crazy micro lots that you probably have never seen or tasted, but at the end of the day, some of the coffees we source, we have a relationship, and we can say like we know what we're getting. This is going to constantly taste like this. But again, that's why quality control is paramount. We're tasting every day, we're cupping every day. Even the stuff that we're always pouring, we'll take random samples of roasts from the previous day and just cup it, just to ensure that our customers are getting a similar and consistent experience.
And I think that, a lot of that too is education. So a lot of, consumers don't realize that, coffee is a crop, and that it's going to change, as you get new crops in. So a lot of that on our part is being able to educate the consumer, like, hey, it is a crop. We have a new lot of Costa Rica in. You'll find that maybe this lot is a little bit more, sweet or compared to the last lot. You know what I mean? And it's not good or bad. It's just a different crop of coffee. Yeah. So, yes.
When you talk about the different properties of coffee, like the flavor, fruitiness, bittersweet, is there some measurement that you guys do, or just based on tasting it I decide this is sweet, so I label it as sweet?
There is. I mean, if Q graders actually, there's a grading. What is it called?
It's like it's a tasting. It's like like scales of acidity and a bitterness,
Sweetness, bitterness, body. And so if you're actually a Q grader, you're tasting these coffees and you're able to grade them, and if you get a bunch of Q graders together, those people should be able to taste that one coffee and be able to grade them pretty similarly to each other. For us on our roaster level, for us it's just, does it taste sweet to us? You know what I mean? Does it taste good? We're not necessarily going into that detail of grading. Yeah. Any other questions?
Do you all host like coffee tasting events?
We do. When we first started, we were doing coffee cuppings every weekend at Abnormal Wine Company, which is now the Cork and Craft and Abnormal Beer Company. But we used to do coffee cuppings every week there as a way to just get our name out into the community because we were still operating out of the garage. So now we will do coffee cuppings. If you were to email us and say, hey, I got a group of 8 people, then we could definitely accommodate that and find a time. So if you guys ever want to do that here at Google and come up to Mostra and have a coffee cupping, we would be more than happy to host that for you guys. Hi.
So I see a lot of similarities of the language that you are using with wine.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you ever considered aging as a way to prove or change the nature of the coffee tasting?
Sam? I'm kidding. No. He's like, yes. Absolutely. Wine is a great example, but what's that fact that you could taste that there's more flavors, detectable flavors?
Yeah, there's over 1,000 more flavor profiles to coffee than there is wine, which is really surprising to people.
Yeah, very, very. We've aged wine, we've aged. Whoa, no, we've aged coffee in wine barrels, reds, whites, mead, which is a honey wine. We actually won Draft Magazine top 25 liquids of, I think it was 2016, and then with our good friends at Superstition Meadery in Prescott, Arizona. So to be a coffee company and to be able to have that is pretty cool. But yeah, I agree. I think we're kind of experimenting. We have a urban winery right next to us called Koizen, and we saw them one day, and they press their own grapes in house, and then they have the skins. And I'm looking at them, I'm like, man, they look like raisins. They kind of look like cascara, the skins from coffee cherries. So we're going to take those and kind of experiment with rehydrating those into our coffee, and then trying to brew a cold brew maybe out of that, or maybe semi-heat extraction with it, and try to take it, not trying to get the volatiles out from the skins, like the bitterness and those acrid flavors. But yeah, definitely. I mean, we take a lot of inspiration from wine, not just spirits and beer. So, yes.
Maybe a follow-on to that. People appreciate wine. They're willing to drop 30 or 300 or more on a bottle of wine.
Right.
Has your experience been that here, at least in the U.S. market, maybe internationally as well, people are becoming more sophisticated? They understand that a pour-over of a small batch is going to cost more than your example earlier of gas station coffee.
I have this weird infatuation with diner and gas station coffee. I'm just letting you know. I'm not saying it tastes amazing. I'm just saying I'm not knocking it at all. But anyways, so I think it's just what Bev said. I think it's educating the public and awareness to the for these products and the type of micro lots that are offered. So why are you charging $15 for a Panama Geisha? Well, let me tell you why. This is why. So again, awareness, education, and that in turn turns into it's great for us because now it's an easier sell. Mm-hmm. Not saying there's going to be $8 cups of coffee. Maybe but yeah. I mean.
Well, I was going to say something that we do. So if you go to our shop, education and experience is a huge thing that we do. So our bar, usually when you go to a coffee bar, you're like the baristas are hiding behind the big espresso machines in the bar, and like you don't really see like what's going on. But at Mostra, we intentionally designed our bars to be really low. Everything's low and open, so you see the entire thing. I think we're still the only coffee shop in San Diego that has the Mavam espresso machine, which is a bar top espresso machine. There's no big machine in front of you, so everything's below. So you get to see the whole process, and I think part of that is our attempt to continue to educate the consumer as to why they're paying so much money, what the process really is, and all the details that we as baristas and coffee companies and us at Mostra really put into every single cup of coffee. So I think that's helping it gain its value as well.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Yes?
Since you're coming from unrelated backgrounds, I had an unrelated question.
Sure.
Could you improvise and sing us a bit?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, I almost put her on the spot.
So I fell in love with her as a 16-year-old in the choir in high school. And it was her voice that made me fall in love. And when I went to Iraq in 06 and 07 and I came back, a little hurt from the experience. It was music, and it was her music that restored my soul. So I would absolutely love it if you can sing a few bars in front of this audience and in front of a live audience. So
I'll give you a line, okay? A line. And that's it. That's what everyone's getting. It's true. I am a classical singer. Yes.
Well, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
I loved hearing your story. Thank you for adding your personal touches. And I was going to ask about Mostra Coffee as a brand and what it meant to you guys, but you mentioned where the name came about. I'd love to hear kind of what's next for you guys. You guys have opened 2 shops. What do you guys see as the next couple of years of Mostra in San Diego or beyond?
Okay, where do I begin? I know, definitely expanding into more locations. It's so crazy because we're in Carmel Mountain Ranch in San Diego, so that's like north inland San Diego, and people drive from LA, Orange County, Riverside County, East Lake, all over San Diego to come to our shop in little old Carmel Mountain Ranch. And it's crazy because we, the 3 of us, Sam, Bev, and I all went to Rancho Mirado High School. So it's a trip. But so we want to become more accessible to the community and open up more locations around town. So by next year we should have my husband's back there. 3 more locations. Okay. So yeah, definitely expanding that way. We are celebrating our 5th anniversary party in January and featuring 30, 40, 50 beers. I can't even keep track. But we're having a massive, massive event. And we actually sold tickets to our anniversary party yesterday online, and I'm not even kidding you. We sold 600 tickets in under 1 minute. And the tickets were not cheap. Thank you.
How much were they?
They were $187 a ticket. Anyway, it's insane. But it's just a lot of that collaboration energy. We're featuring a ton of beers that we've done over the last year. So a lot of craft beer people are coming from all over the place, and they camped out in front of our shop on Friday night when we did it. We did a small in-store sale in our shop on Saturday morning, and I drove by at 9:30 the night before, and there were people that were like, "Oh, I drove in from Arizona to buy a ticket to your anniversary party in January."
They were camping out there.
What's that?
They were camping out there at 9 p.m. on
slept.
Friday night.
So anyway, so we just expanding is definitely number 1 right now. We're just
Our
to do
hope
that.
is 20 stores in the next 10 years is what we would love to do. So that's our goal.
And as Mike was mentioning, cold brew, we were known as a cold brew company. People knew because we infuse, we do sell regular single origin cold brew, but we also do a lot of innovative stuff where we infuse our cold brews with all these different flavors. We'll do stuff that tastes like vanilla. We'll do stuff that tastes like vanilla and strawberry, chocolate covered strawberries, Ferrero Rocher flavor flavored. I mean, it's all over the place. And so I think something that would take things to the next level is to actually can our cold brews and make them accessible to just people nationally. Because I can't even tell you how many emails we get from people on the East Coast, like, we want some of your cold brew. And we're like, we don't ship that. But so definitely expanding our cold brew line is a big one. Continuing to our efforts in the Philippines to just bring that Philippine bean here and to grow the market for it. So roasters all over the world start sourcing coffee from the Philippines as well. And
just building our coffee program even more and our direct trade relationships even more. Yep.
And then, as Mike said, we do barrel-aged coffee. So just really expanding on the barrel-aged coffee program, which is just us continuing to push the envelope and be innovative with everything that we do.
So a lot of things.
Oh, Sam has something.
And then just, I think lastly, for 4 years, it was us. We did everything, and we had the opportunity to expand. We've got 25 employees now on payroll. I've got 4 children. We're trying to create a sustainable business that feeds families and is able to support a sustainable career. So we'll keep working hard and keep staying true to our story. And if you all are in Carmel Mountain Ranch, in Rancho Bernardo, please come by and say hi to us.
Stop by, yeah.
Yeah.
So after this talk, and you head outside, we actually have a bunch of coffee samples for you guys to try. We have, do you know which ones that they brewed today?
We have the Ethiopia Hambella, which is a natural processed coffee. And then we have a Yirgacheffe, which is a wash process. So it's going to be interesting. We wanted to bring 2 different Ethiopians, but different processes. So you could kind of see the differences in those.
Do you guys know what processing means? Okay.
Yeah.
I thought Bev was going to talk about that.
So processing is what happens after the cherry gets picked from the tree. So there's natural processing, which is when, they actually sometimes leave the cherry on the seed, and a lot of times what can happen is that the cherry or this coffee will retain a berry flavor to it. And then there's also washed, where they depulp the cherry off of the seed. It goes through fermentation and drying and all of that, and then you'll get more of what Mike was saying, a lot of lemony flavors, a lot of tart flavors. So you're going to be able to taste those differences between this Ethiopia Hambella and an Ethiopia Yirgacheffe, because the Hambella is a natural processed coffee and the Yirgacheffe is a washed processed coffee. So
what are the other coffees? We have one Brazilian coconuts.
Yeah, we have one Brazilian coconuts cold brew, and then we've got some beer.
And we actually have a short roasting demo right outside when you guys walk out. So we actually brought our 1 pound roaster, and you can actually see the green beans. If you've never seen green beans, it's right there for you to see as well. So is that it, guys? Yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you so much for having us, you guys.